I'll start talking. If you can't hear me at any point, just do let me know and I'll try and speak up. Sharon, let me know. Yeah, I am going to remember to do that because it genuinely helps filming it. That might be the only applause I get today as well. You've got me for 15 minutes and that's the best joke of the afternoon. I'm going to talk about how to make sales at events just like this. I've made quite a lot of sales at events just like this over the years. It's why I'm here, all the way from Oxford. Sharon and I drove up from Stansted last night. We're driving back to Oxford later. This is why I still turn up at events just like this, because I make sales. Some of my clients include BT, Utility Warehouse, the Discount Club, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, Lloyds Banking Group, that I've met at events just like this and have become clients of mine along the way. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit during the course of this lunchtime as well. That's what I do. I speak for a living. I can genuinely claim to be a best-selling author. I train quite a lot of people in these skills as well. And I go to a lot of events like this to start conversations. One of the things that I'm going to talk about today a lot is about trust. Trust comes in a gradation. People sometimes ask me, once I've met someone, how long before they'll be ready to do business with me? It's not about a time scale. It's about trust. If you go to any sort of formal networking events anywhere, you may have heard the expression know, like, and trust, or meet, like, know, and trust, depending on which flavor of networking you go to. That process, after you've met someone, that you go through, where they get to know you, they decide whether they like you or not. It's their decision, not yours. They decide whether they trust you or not. But there's gradations of trust along the way. For example, I've written 3 books, Business Networking for Dummies, Instant Networking and Win the Room. They cost about a tenner each on Amazon. It takes an amount of trust for someone to invest £10 in buying a book from me. It takes an amount of trust for you to give up 20 minutes of your time to come and see me speak. That's one thing about trust. I speak on stage at annual conferences for people. I've spoken for the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. I'm repeatedly tripping up on this, which I'll try not to do. I've spoken at people's annual conferences. It takes a degree more trust, quite a lot more trust, before someone puts me on stage at their annual conference. For someone to buy a book, it's a tenner. And most people who buy books, don't always read all the way through them anyway. So people invest a tenner in buying a book. To put me on stage at an annual conference, to swap over my utilities to a company at my house, to swap over my telecoms and communications to another company, that takes a degree more trust. And it's about what we do, the effort that we put into building that trust in the first place, that actually makes the difference. The reason I come to events just like this is to start conversations with people. So many people come to an event like this, or even exhibit at an event like this, and expect to get the whole of the conversation into one day. I don't walk up to you, start talking to you, and immediately expect you to buy a book from me. And yet somehow when people go to networking events, they expect to have the whole of that conversation in that one event. Events like this are the start of the conversation. This is where the trust starts. Events like this are where I just start conversations. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. Each one of these big opportunities for me started with a little conversation somewhere. The conversation at the beginning doesn't have to be the big conversation. It's what so many people here will be trying to do today. They'll be trying to move it on from, I've met you, to, would you like to buy from me, within 10 or 15 minutes. And we sort of laugh at it, but if you walk around, you'll see that that's exactly what people are doing. For some reason, which I've never quite got, when we put the label networking on something, we tend to overcomplicate it. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. All we need to do at events just like this is start human conversations with people. It's not what we do at the events, which is the thing that makes us memorable. A question which people ask me a lot is, how do I become memorable at events like this? When I go to a networking event, how do I become memorable to the people in the room? It's the wrong question. Because let me tell you, I'm not a mind reader, but a number of things will happen today. You may have had some really brilliant conversations with people here in the room. You may have met some amazing people who you really liked what they had to say. You really liked their product or service. You get back out to the car park at the end of the day. You take your phone off airplane mode. You've got messages from your son. Are you at home, Dad? Can I have a lift? Is that just me? I'm sure it's not just me. You've got messages from your son. You've got an email from a client. You've got a couple of missed calls from a number you don't recognize. You suddenly realize that you've left a bit later than you expected to. You're going to get caught in traffic. That brilliant conversation you had earlier on starts to slip down your list of priorities. No matter how memorable the person was, no matter the fact that they talked about living in Cornwall, they talked about virtual wine tasting, they talked about the fact that there's now a pie delivery service, water sponsored by the wonderful people at Pastoral Communications this afternoon. No matter how great that conversation was and that they lent me some water, real life starts to get in the way. Being memorable at an event like this isn't about what you do in the room. How many of you go to some sort of networking event where you have to do a 60-second or 40-second introduction? Okay. That's not about being completely memorable. People think that getting that right is the most important thing, that developing a great elevator pitch is what they need to do. In 2022, it's time to ditch the elevator pitch. It's not about what we say to people on the day that matters. If you've not heard this idea, the elevator pitch, I first heard about it in the 1990s, this idea that you would get into an elevator, the other people in the elevator would be Richard Branson, you were only going up to the second floor in the Tony Waddington suite, I think. You were only going to be in there for 30 seconds and you had to have all this stuff ready to say to someone in case you bumped into your best possible client or someone like that. And I've got a couple of big problems with the elevator pitch. The first one is that we're right in the middle of England. It's called a lift, for God's sake. Yeah, I was expecting a better laugh for that, but you know, it's good. The second one is, if you really started doing that to people, if you really started doing that to everyone you met today, started immediately telling them everything about your business, are they going to engage with you, or are they going to literally start backing away from you? If you really started telling Richard Branson all about everything that you do, if you bumped into him in a lift, would he really get a checkbook out, or would he press the security button and get out? It's not about your elevator pitch on the day. Even when you stand up and introduce yourself at networking events, every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. All that we're trying to do is start the conversation. For those of you who don't know me terribly well, before this part of my career started in 2007, before this happened, I was an estate agent for about 20 years. That's what I did, man and boy, from when I left school up until my late 30s. We advertised in our local newspaper, the Oxford Times. We advertised every single week. In our advert in the Oxford Times, we didn't tell people every detail about every house we had for sale. The point of our advert in the Oxford Times was to give people just enough that they wanted to find out a little bit more, that they would then. My estate agency career ended in 2007, just before social media became a thing. Most of my estate agency career was pre-internet. What we wanted to do was give people enough in that advert that they wanted to pick up the phone and talk to us, or even come into our office and speak to us. When you start speaking to someone at an event like this, all you're looking to do is start the conversation. When you give your 40 or 60-second introduction at a networking event, all you're really hoping to do is start the conversation so that people want to find out a little bit more afterwards. What so many people try and do is tell people about everything that we do, and these are our opening hours, and we've got all of these training, and we've got 34 staff based here. They try and tell people everything that they do, and actually people aren't interested in that bit. When I deliver my networking introduction at a networking event, all that I'm looking to do is give people the information that I will help them sell more, and then some people in the room will want to find out more about that. When we were talking about ourselves as estate agents back in the day, this is where I learned this stuff. We wanted people to know that we sold houses for more money than any other estate agent locally. Then they would want to find out more. Then they would come and continue the conversation and start to ask us about how we did that. If I can help people sell more at events just like this, a number of people will want to engage in conversation and find out more about that. How can you apply that to your business? Giving people just enough that they want to find out more about you. We've talked about the trust. People ask me how long it takes to get that trust. And I've talked about delivering our introduction or meeting people and starting the conversation. It's what you do next that counts, same as in every aspect of life, but it's after the events like this that it really matters. It's how you engage with people after you've met. One of the things that I've done today with several of the people that I've met is made sure that we connect on LinkedIn. Every big opportunity starts with a little conversation. The event itself is just the start of the conversation. So I make absolutely sure that I then connect with people so that we can continue the conversation after the event. Used to carry a load of business cards, but sort of since lockdown, it's more become making sure I connect with people, connecting with people on the spot, and then keeping in touch with people. Let me explain why I talk about keeping in touch with people. Continuing to talk about the trust. Another question that people ask me is, after I've met someone, how should I follow up with them? And once again, the question is subtly wrong. Following up with someone suggests that you're leading them down a path to buy from you, which is what most people do. But just keeping in touch with people has proven very significantly more productive, more commercially productive for me, rather than following up. If I were to invite one of you to a sales meeting, if I were to say, I've got this great product, I've known you for a little while, and I'd love to talk with you about it. If we had that meeting, you would be expecting me to tell you about my product or service. If I then followed up with you afterwards, you would be expecting me to follow up to see if you were interested in buying that product or service. When someone comes to an event like this, they didn't come here to buy from you. When any of you came here this morning, no matter where you came from, whose business did you come here for the sake of? Yeah, it's not a trick question. It's genuinely not a trick question. I ask the question and people think that I'm going to talk about looking after other people, passing referrals, but fundamentally, no matter where you drove from, if you came here today, you came here for the sake of your business. So did everyone else. So they ain't expecting to be followed up by you, unless you've had a specific conversation to say, I'm interested in what you're buying. People aren't expecting to be followed up by you, but people won't mind if you keep in touch. Someone's asked me about this. I run my own very small networking organization where I also mentor people as well, help them get the most out of networking. It's called Connect, and if my clicker's working, my clicker stopped working. There we go. It's called Connect, and we've got a private group in Connect, and someone's asked the question this morning about how to keep in touch with people after events like this. And I've given them the same advice that I'm going to give you right now. Go onto their turf. Go to them rather than expect them to come to you. I got it right in the end. Go to them rather than expecting them to come to you. Let me explain what I mean. When we get in touch with people after events, what we usually do is write them an email saying, it was lovely to meet you this morning, and here's a bit about what I do in case you're ever interested. And most people read the first paragraph of that and skip over the rest because they're not interested. But a load of us are still sending those emails. How about doing something different? How about finding that person that you've connected with, seeing what they're posting on LinkedIn, and going and starting engaging on that? Not trying to sell to them, just seeing what they're talking about and engaging on their turf. Going to where they are and starting to talk to them. Let me explain how that's worked. I'm skipping about a little bit. Did a load of work for Lloyd's Banking Group. I've spoken at their events. At least one of their guys has become a member of my group, Connect. But the way that I got that gig the way that I got the speaking gig for 120 sales guys from Lloyd's is that I met one of their senior people at an event just like this. Let me tell you how we started the conversation. It wasn't some clever elevator pitch. It wasn't some clever form of words. At the end of the event, both him and me were struggling to take down our pop-up banners. I'm not terribly tall. He isn't either. We were struggling to take the banners down, and literally said, these banners are a complete pain in the arse, aren't they? And he said, oh, you were speaking earlier on, weren't you? I said, yeah. He said, oh, look, my name's Paul. Shall we keep in touch? But yeah, the banners are a pain in the arse. So we connected on LinkedIn. For 18 months, I made sure I checked out Paul every few days on LinkedIn. I looked at what he was posting. I commented on it. 18 months later, he came around to organising his annual sales conference for his guys. And he got in touch with me and said, look, I couldn't ignore you because every time I went on LinkedIn, up in my notifications, it said, Stefan Thomas has commented, Stefan Thomas has liked your post. I didn't go to him and say, remember I'm a speaker, Paul, remember I'm a speaker, book me, book me, book me. Have you booked that conference yet? How are you getting on finding a speaker? I kept gently in touch. I went onto his turf. I went to him. I commented on his posts. I couldn't ignore you, could I? If you do enough of that, and I do that at very significant scale, go and connect with the other people that I'm speaking to, engage with them after I've met them. If you do that at significant scale, something happens. Some of those people come back and look at what you're doing. Some of those people look at what you're putting out there. You've got a bit of a question to ask yourself at that point, and that is, are you giving them anything to look at? So we've sort of gone through the process. We're meeting people at events. We're starting conversations with people at events. We're going to them, connecting with them, going onto their turf, going and engaging them with where they are. And when they come back and look at us, are we giving them stuff to look at ourselves? One of the things that I do repeatedly all the time is put out a ton of information on LinkedIn about networking. Free advice, free information. Couple of pointers on that, because there's some really practical stuff going on here. I do create a lot of content, but one of the ways that I create content is that I go to a lot of events like this and I speak. We have filming at the back of the room, filming me speaking. I've got an audio recorder tucked away in my pocket, which is why I'm mic'd up. So driving up here, being at this event and speaking is incredibly efficient use of my time, because I've now got a load of stuff to put on YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram. I've got audio to go out as a podcast. So a lot of the advice that I'm putting out there on LinkedIn, for example, will be clipped out of this very seminar here, the video that we've taken, once we've photoshopped all of the people into it. Was expecting a better laugh for that as well. But we'll put it out, and that gives me a ton of content. Think about whatever it is that you do. If you're going to all of the effort of being in touch with other people, coming to events like this, engaging with other people, are you giving them something to look at when they come back and look at you? Because any one of you can. It doesn't matter whether you're a sole trader, sole owner of a limited company, work for a big organization. There are ways that you can come up with the right content to put out there that people pay attention to. Commercial break. One of the things that we do, and one of the things that I do in my group Connect when I work with people, is help them to understand which platforms they need to be on, because it's different. LinkedIn and Instagram work for me, may well be different for you and your business, and also the type of content that they should be putting out there, and we make it easy for them to do so. If you're at all interested in speaking to me about that, take a photo of the QR code or grab me afterwards. But what are you giving people to look at? There's plenty of content that you can put out there, be helpful to people, and also show them a little bit about what you do. I do speak for a living, so photos and video of me speaking for a living is valuable to put out there. It reminds people that I speak for a living. Other companies have been in touch with me recently to try and book me to speak. That comes from putting out stuff like this. But give out advice about whatever industry, whatever profession you're in. I got booked to speak by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. I spoke at their annual conference on a number of occasions. When I asked them, as I ask everyone, why did you choose me? Not like, why did you choose me? But, market research. One of the things that they said was, we felt like we already knew you. And that becomes pretty much the crux of all of this. Meet like no trust, or know like and trust. Can you imagine how much trust there is when someone feels like they already know you? And that is where I'm leading people to. They can decide whether they like me or not. They can decide whether they trust me or not, but I'm at least giving people the opportunity. Because what SEMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, saw was a load of video of me speaking at events so that they could see that I did the thing that they wanted to engage me to do. And I do a load of video with me just talking to the camera as well. So they felt like they already knew me. When I started work in a shoe shop back in 1983, we were trained to do this thing when we first met someone. In that first few minutes after they came into the gents department, how do you build rapport? What do you talk to them about? Comment on how they're dressed, ask them what they're buying the shoes for, get into conversation with them about that. We were taught to build rapport with people, because then the people would feel like they knew us a little bit, which would make the conversation a lot easier. In 2022, you've got all of these tools to help build rapport with people after you've met them. You've got LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and whatever else there is out there. Where else am I? Podcasts and YouTube and so on and so forth. The real opportunity is that most people won't bother. The real opportunity is that, because I'm talking a little bit about putting some actual effort in, not just automating stuff, but actually engaging with other people, actually coming up with content yourself, and occasionally showing people where the till is, because that's all right as well. That takes a wee bit of effort, and the real opportunity is that most people won't do that. So if you do it, you're already putting yourself ahead of the competition. And what it means for me is that at the point at which I get inquiries from people, they feel like they already know me. The conversation is already really warm. And how much nicer is that for me as well, where I'm starting a conversation with someone who's seen videos of me, we've engaged on social media already, they may have been referred to me by someone who does already know me, but we've got to that stage where we do it. Meet people at events like this. Events like this are amazing. That's why I've come up from Oxford. We're going back to Oxford later on. That's what makes it worthwhile for me. But remember that the event is only the start of the conversation. It's everything which you do afterwards which continues the conversation. And I mentioned not hiding the till earlier on. Go into any fashion retailer anywhere in the country and look up at the ceiling. It says, please pay here. Go into Dunelm. By the way, we were in Dunelm a few weeks ago. You can't get out without going through the tills. True story, you can't. Okay, you know Dunelm. You should meet Sharon. Dunelm's amazing. But you can't get out without going through the tills. As small business owners, we sometimes get a bit icky about showing people where the till is. It's perfectly all right when you've done all this work to occasionally say to someone, look, I may be able to help. Would you like a chat about it? Once again, that's something that I help people with who are members of my group. Here's the thing, and I've just remembered I've not got my phone with me, so I'm having to keep checking my watch because I haven't got anything in front of me that tells me the time. If you've been doing a load of networking events, if you've been going to events like this and don't feel you've been getting it right so far, it's all right. I went through my whole career being told that you only get one chance to make an impression. And in the last 14 or 15 years, I've done something over 1,500 networking events. I've done this, speaking in front of people about 800 times. And some people come back to see me again. You've seen me speak before, and it's lovely that you've come back to see me again. Some people come back to see me again. This was the only place where I got a second chance, or even these days a 1,500th chance to make an impression. I am out of time. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.